Well, we're not going to be doing any haying today. Looks like it's probably going to be a couple of days of no haying. It's blasting hot out there right now and very humid. And things in here are reasonably comfortable, but a reasonably bad mess. So I've got to get the shop tidied up. And then I have got a little project I want to get working on. I want to build a small toolbox or carry box to put on the back of the tractor, because whenever I want to carry anything around, I have to either put it in the shovel or on the floor of the tractor, and there's just no real room to do that. So I've got some pine here I'm going to start sizing up and run through the planer. But none of that is going to happen until I can find my way across the shop floor without tripping on things and get tools put away and that kind of stuff. So we'll get to that, and then we'll get the planer set up and start dressing up my wood for the toolbox. All right, we got the shop cleaned up. It is really humid, so you'll hear my fan running in the background here to try to keep air circulating. So I've got my pieces that I'm going to try to dress down here. So I've got one I have to cut down to a rough width, and then I'm going to run everything through the planer to flatten and smooth it. And we'll see what it looks like when we get there. And once again, with most of the stuff I do, it's kind of plan as you go. So we'll see what happens. But for now, let's get this piece through the table saw, and then we can start running them through the planer. Alright, so I've got my bottom planed. It's about 1 inch thick, and I've got my sides here. They're a little over 3/4 of an inch. Now I want to make this a really well fastened bottom piece and size. So what I'm going to do to give it as much strength as I can is I'm actually going to notch the sides about 3/8 of an inch up from the bottom and notch it wide enough for the bottom piece to fit in on both sides. That should theoretically make it quite strong. So, do I know what I'm doing, you might ask? Nah, not really. So we're just going to go at it anyway and see how it works. That's perfect. So there's our basic box. As you can see, I've got this notched out here on both sides. Nice close fit on the bottom. So that should make it really strong. So I've got this dry fitted together, and I have figured out my dimensions for the end plates. So I'm going to cut one end plate and put in dado joints for the side and the bottom here and try to get that to fit. We'll see how that goes. All right, so next I need to edge it down to my 8.5 inch height. So I'm looking for a length of 18 1/4, so I'm going to use my fence
to put my board in position. Okay, there's my 18 1/4, and now I don't want to be jamming things with the fence, so I'm going to move it out of the way and take my cut. All right, that's got it. So that's our bottom dado cut in. So I think next, before I go any farther, I want to cut these boards to a rough length, because this far end is really very out of square, obviously. So let's trim those up and get ourselves to the point where we're about an inch left to go. All right, there's our box back together again. So it's trimmed so that it's going to be roughly an inch too long. So what I want to do is fit this end plate on, so that way I've got both end plates on, and then I can measure outside to outside of the end plates, and that will tell me exactly how much to cut off of here. So when I put the end plate back on, I'll have my exact dimension, or at least hopefully close enough. All right, let's see how our end plate fits. That's a nice fit. Well, there we go. That's got our two end plates fitted in place. And this one is really snug. I'm quite pleased. So we're just about ready to actually start gluing and screwing the box together. So a couple of the things that I have to worry about is the seat. I gotta make sure my seat isn't going to hit the back of the box and bust it off. I've got to make sure when I've got something on the 3-point hitch, like the grater box here, when it's up all the way, it doesn't bang into the bottom of the box and bust it off. And I've got these two holes here that it's actually going to mount into. And that means I need to leave clearance for the hinge. And I also need to be able to put the pin end that goes into the roll bar to hold it in place. So there's a lot of stuff to take into consideration to get everything sitting in just the right spot. Well, there we are, all glued and screwed. Now the next step is I've got to make hardwood inserts to go on the inside here that the pins go through, and will also help support the box, because there is going to be a lot of weight in here and just softwood here on the outside with a couple of holes in it, I think it would possibly split. So I'll start cutting up some hardwood pieces for in there, and we'll glue and screw them into place. So here's my hardwood insert here. So the grain on the hardwood is running up and down. The grain on the pine is running front to back. So I'm kind of crossing my grain, giving it sort of a plywood effect, and the compression that the hardwood can take with the grain running up and down is much higher than the grain running sideways. So this not only helps support the holes, because it's going up the back of the box, it's going to also add support for the box itself. That should work nicely now. Well, it is another desperately hot day out here. I spent some time this morning up in the garden cleaning it out. As you can see, we've got some rows, a lot of rows now harvested, gone. Our lettuce is desperately drying out. Potatoes are ready for harvest, so I'm going to have to do that soon. The peas and beans are doing pretty good. And I've actually got a cantaloupe growing, which is a first, so it's been something. But oh, look at the state of this garden. It is so wilted. Gonna do a little more watering here, and I've got one more odd job to do. I've got to get down to Art's and dig out a hole for a post that he wants to install, so we'll get that done and then get back and get that box finished up for the back of the tractor. All right, so let's water away and then get the heck out of this heat. So because this is softwood and a fairly wide piece of pine, I'm a little worried about cracking from drying out. So I've cut some blocks here that I'm going to put 2 on each side, glue and screw them in place, and 2 on the bottom as well. That should help hold our wood together over the course of time. Well, there's the 4 battens glued and screwed in place on the front and back of the box. I've still got 2 to put across the bottom, but I'm out of clamps and I'm running low on glue. So I'm going to leave this for today, and then we'll finish it off tomorrow morning, hopefully when it's a little cooler. Well, there it is, all in place. I'm actually pretty pleased with it. It seems to be pretty sturdy. I've got it bolted through these 2 existing bolt holes because I didn't want to add holes to the roll bar. That would be a bit dangerous. And it seems to have a reasonable amount of strength. I gave it a good coating with used oil to help preserve the wood. And as you can see, it does just clear the 3-point hitch when the grater box is all the way up. So that looks good. And I wanted it on the inside of the roll bar to make sure there's nothing else sticking out that could cause any trouble. And the pins go through very easily. There's no problem with the seat. It's close, but the seat doesn't hit it. So it looks pretty good. So we'll leave it on here for a little while. The only time I really have to take it off is if I put the backhoe on, then it of course is in the way. So we'll give it some test runs and see how it goes. It's going to be nice to be able to carry my water and a small toolbox and my cameras and that kind of thing with me whenever I go off anywhere on the tractor. So I'm quite pleased with that. Now we'll just have to see what we're going to do next. Haying is almost over. Not quite. We've got a teeny bit left to do. And a couple of shots I want to show you from our last little experience doing that. And then I've got to get back to work on some yard work. Again, I still have not done any staining on the shop, and I want to get most of that done before the winter. So I've got to get going on that. So that's going to be it for today's video. So thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you out on the trails the next time.